Today, we're embarking on a detailed comparison on the Fuji X-M5 versus the ZV-E10 Mark II. My goal is to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of their differences so that you can make an informed decision. I will be conducting a thorough analysis of both of these cameras, pushing them to their limits so that we can determine where their performance thresholds lie. Both cameras have CMOS sensors, which Sony produces, but Fuji has its own color filter array, which gives Fuji its unique look. This raises an interesting question: how different are the color profiles of both of these cameras? Take a look at this shot that I got of the sunset. I set both cameras up side by side using 4K 24, and I shot with their standard color profiles. They were both exposed the same way, fitted with the same lenses, and framed with the same composition. Just look at how different the skyline turned out. We have two different cameras producing two distinct looks when using their standard color profiles. However, when I switched both cameras over to their log profiles, the images appeared remarkably similar. Even after applying my Sony log conversion LUT to the X-M5, the results were still very close. If there's any color discrepancy at all, it may be attributed to my in-camera white balance settings, if anything. This indicates that both cameras would work effectively as an A-cam, B-cam setup, but only when shooting in the log mode. This video is not sponsored by Sony, Fuji, or anyone else. If you'd like to support the channel, you can use the affiliate links in the description to buy your camera gear or enroll in one of my courses. In fact, I've created a course on the ZV-E10 Mark II that covers how to set it up, working in various lighting conditions, and maximizing its features, complete with project files. I'll leave that course in the description. For now, I challenge you to guess which camera is which. And while you look at these shots, I'll outline what we will be covering today. For every comparison shot throughout this entire video, I use the exact same lenses on both cameras with the exception of the kit lenses. So we have the best possible apples to apples comparison. We need the same glass to ensure accurate color accuracy. With that being said, I did a sharpness test with both cameras, and I also scaled in a little bit so we could do some pixel peeping. I tested out their autofocus systems in a dimly lit environment to really make them work hard so that we could see where their autofocus limitations lie. I did some low light shooting with both cameras to assess when the images start to show noise, as well as some night shots for those of you who like to do video or photography at night. Once the sun came out, I flipped both cameras upside down to explore how a flyover shot would appear from a creative viewpoint. Then I captured a variety of shots in different lighting conditions to demonstrate how each camera reproduces its colors. I also shot some macro video and did some green screen work as if I was showcasing a product rotation for a website design project. To further test out these cameras, I aimed them directly at the sun so that we could see how well they could handle that backlighting. Normally when you shoot a camera at the sun, it tends to wash out all the vibrant colors. I did some stabilization tests, some vlog tests, and I created some vertical content for short form creators. If you're interested on how both of these cameras will perform on your editing rigs, I've provided a free download link for the footage that I got with both of these cameras, including different frame rates and resolution, their log profiles, along with raw photography. This way you can try the raw images out for yourself. For now, I'm gonna share my thoughts and experiences with both of these cameras, along with some guidance on which one might be the best fit for you. I know that was a quick introduction, but there's a lot to cover in a limited amount of time, and that's what we will be tackling today on the Film Alliance. If by the end of this video you're still undecided about which camera or lens you should purchase, I made 2 free quizzes on which camera or lens you should choose. This quiz will ask you specific questions, and based on your answers, funnel you to the camera or lens that best suits your needs. I'll leave a link to that quiz in the description. All right, before we jump into their differences, let's cover what they share in common. Both cameras have the ability to interchange lenses. They both feature a 26 megapixel CMOS sensor. Neither camera includes in-body stabilization or IBIS, but both have fully articulating touchscreens, and they share the same ports. They accept the same size SD cards. However, the ZV-E10 Mark II has an advantage regarding the SD card compatibility, which I'll discuss later in the video. Both cameras support external recording, but the Fuji X-M5 significantly outperforms in this regard, which we will talk about once we get to the image quality chapter. Also, both can capture photography in RAW and JPEG, and neither model has an electronic viewfinder. If you're not using a viewfinder, then you're going to need to rely on the display, which has just over 1 million dots on both cameras. Finally, both cameras can shoot in 422 10-bit internally when it comes to video. The Fuji X-M5 has a starting price of $799, while the ZV-E10 Mark II is starting at $999. Both of those are US. If you decide to buy the camera and the kit lens together, you're gonna spend an additional $100 on the kit lens. To me, that's a pretty smart move because if you buy this kit lens separately, you're looking at paying an extra $200 to $300. For this comparison, I used the Viltrox 23mm f1.4 prime lens for some street video, my sharpness tests, and some general photography. This lens works great with both cameras, making it an excellent travel combination. I also used the wide lens, the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 for landscape photography, low light conditions, and for some low light shots whenever I needed to maximize the light with that f1.4 aperture. I also put both kit lenses on both cameras and used them as a beginner would, just out and about in run and gun situations as if I was on a budget and I couldn't afford anything more expensive than the kit lens. Now, don't underestimate the kit lenses. If it's all that you can get, they're still pretty impressive. When I first bought the Fuji X-M5, it would shut off after about 20 seconds of recording, but after some research, I realized that I needed to update the kit lens with a firmware update, and that fixed the problem. A big difference with both of these cameras is their form factor. The X-M5 goes back to that bygone era with its classic rangefinder style design. It's smaller in form factor than the ZV-E10 Mark II, and in some ways that's good because you can slip it right into your pocket or camera bag, and it'll take up less space, especially when you don't have a lens attached to it. On the other hand, the smaller form factor means less of a grip. In fact, this is a two-handed camera. The reason I say that is because the grip is so small. When I put my hand on it like this, I have to exert the same amount of pressure on both sides of the camera in order to get it to grip. And when the pressure from my palm hits these buttons, I inadvertently hit them and I don't mean to. So I end up holding the camera with two hands like this. This is why I would highly recommend you pick up a camera cage like the one they sell from Small Rig for your X-M5, which will greatly enhance not only your grip, but also prevent any damage to the camera if you end up dropping it. The Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, on the other hand, takes a more modern approach with a design that's become familiar amongst today's mirrorless cameras. It has more of a substantial grip, which provides a reassuringly comfortable hold, especially when using larger lenses. If you have a large lens on your X-M5, it's gonna be very top heavy and harder to hold, and possibly more dangerous. The larger grip on the ZV-E10 Mark II means it's gonna be a bit larger and heavier and will take up more real estate in your camera bag. But that extra bulk also translates to a more confident grip. That way you don't have to use two hands to hold the camera, and it's also beneficial for those of you who have larger hands. Speaking about media, you have to interchange the media through the battery door on the X-M5. And you get side loading with the ZV-E10 Mark II, which makes the ZV-E10 Mark II definitely a better go-to camera if you're in a run and gun situation and you quickly need to swap out the media. The X-M5 only accepts the older UHS 1 cards, and the ZV-E10 Mark II accepts UHS 2. While UHS 1 cards are still perfectly functional for photography and video, they have a lower maximum read and write speed compared to UHS 2 cards. UHS 2 cards utilize more pins on the SD card, so they can achieve significantly faster data transfer speeds. This translates to quicker burst shooting, smoother 4K video recording, and even better yet, faster file transfers to your computer. So when it's time to offload all of your footage from either of these cards, the ZV-E10 Mark II's UHS 2's card will offload much faster than the X-M5. But UHS 1 cards are still a lot cheaper, which means you could buy more of them and leave them in your camera bag. Both cameras do have the same exact ports, but the mic port on the X-M5 is placed on the back of the camera right above the touch display. And at first I didn't like the placement of this mic port, but then I realized if I had an external mic on the top hot shoe here, I would have less wire real estate around this area. Whereas with the ZV-E10 Mark II, it's in the side, so then the wire has to go into the side. And if you want to fully articulate your ZV-E10 Mark II, you're gonna have a wire sticking right in front of the display. When it comes to buttons and dials, the X-M5 has a film simulation dial on the top where you can quickly switch between the different film simulations that this camera offers. On the other side of the top of the camera, you have a mode dial. Here you can switch between different video modes, photography modes, also a vlog mode. You have 4 different custom buttons, and you can customize those to any settings that you so choose. The ZV-E10 Mark II does not have either of those dials, but it rather has a mode switch that you can switch between photography, video, and S&Q. I like the mode dial on the X-M5 better for this reason, because now I can quickly toggle between 4 different customized exposure settings. The X-M5 also has an autofocus joystick on the back of the camera, which I find extremely helpful, especially when I'm in those fast situations and I need to quickly focus on something on my display. Whereas with the ZV-E10 Mark II, you have to touch the display in order to focus. Take a look at this morning shot, for example. I had to use the touchscreen on the ZV-E10 II to focus on that tree in the center, where I could use the joystick on the X-M5 to lock onto focus without having to touch my display. I'm not a huge fan of touching the display because that just muddies it up with oils from your finger. The X-M5 also has an auto exposure lock and autofocus lock above the touch display as well, which is a handy little feature when you want to lock in your exposure or your focus. Also with the X-M5, you get a front dial, which means you'll be able to quickly toggle your aperture, your shutter speed, or your ISO, or your film simulations, whatever it is that you so decide to use. It also has a clickable function, so you can quickly toggle between whatever it is that you set up with that dial. Both cameras' playback function is about the same. They work, but it's nothing like an iPhone. Now, let's jump into their image quality. Both can shoot in 4K up to 60 frames per second, but the X-M5 offers 6K open gate. This is great for 6K shooters. Just keep in mind that that file size is going to be a lot larger. When shooting in low light environments with the wide lens, I noticed a distinct color shift, especially in the skies, as you can see here. Specifically, the X-M5 rendered shadows with a pronounced magenta purplish bias, which impacted the overall color accuracy of the skyline. Same thing with the night shots here, using the same exact wide lens. Take a look at this street shot and look at the reds and the skies and the shadows, and you can see quite a big difference. For all of these night shots, I was shooting in the standard color profile because I really wanted to see the difference between the different looks in the cameras, especially in these precarious lighting situations. But whenever I shot in their log profile, like I mentioned earlier, using the 23mm prime lens, I was able to apply the same exact grade to both cameras, and the images came out looking almost exactly the same. Just take a look at how close this street shot is. That's why I mentioned both of these cameras together would make a great A-cam, B-cam setup as long as you're shooting in that log profile. But that was in an uncontrolled lighting environment, so I brought them inside in a controlled lighting environment and I threw both of them in front of a color checker. And sure enough, both shots still looked almost identical. By the way, if you like that Fujifilm look, I created 5 different film simulations, emulations for your Sony ZV-E10 II, your Sony a6700, or your FX30. So if you want that Fuji look with any of those 3 Sony cameras, I made a LUT for it. I'll leave it in the description. After that log test with the color checker, I put both cameras back under their standard color profile and I shot the color checker again to see how much different those colors truly are. Now that is a testament to how both cameras read out these colors in their standard color profiles, even though they both have CMOS sensors that Sony produces. Like I had mentioned, both cameras have the same exact sized sensors as well, which gives them very comparable performance when you're doing any type of green screen work. I used the wide lens for these green screen shots, and I was able to get it clean and accurate subject isolation. This similarity likely stems from their ability to capture a similar level of color detail and dynamic range, which is crucial for successful chroma keying. Speaking about dynamic range, both cameras demonstrated very similar dynamic range capabilities, which allowed them to capture a wide range of tones from highlights all the way down to the shadows. I did not do this in a laboratory. This was just me going out and about and just my observations. For example, take a look at this sunlight on the bookshelf. Both cameras handled the shadows along with the exterior of the window very well. For this shot, I was using the wide lens. Both cameras' dynamic range similarity is expected given their comparable sensor technology and size. Both cameras were able to retain the detail in the challenging high contrast scenes that I put them through. Take a look at this shot that I got over the ocean with a wide lens and no ND filter on the lens. Normally when you shoot directly into the sun, that washes out a lot of your colors, but not with both of these cameras because I can still see the blue water and the green bushes that are right in the front. I can also see a little bit of colors from the sun, which means both cameras handled this well. Also, when I shot this building with both cameras' kit lenses doing a backlit shot, I was expecting to see the buildings become a lot darker because of the nature of how light and sensors work. But I was able to retain a lot of those colors fairly well with both cameras. This would tell me that both of these cameras are great for travel, especially when shooting in the standard color profile, not even shooting in log. I'm always interested in the sky color while shooting in the standard color profile because I wanted to see if there was a similarity between daytime shooting and that low light shot where we could see the difference in the sky. And in this case, the sky and the water do have different colors, but it's not as noticeable as when we are in low light. The ZV-E10 II has more of a greenish color than the light blue cast of the X-M5. Also, when I shot directly at the sun with the kit lens, both images looked very similar. I didn't see much of a difference in the color of the sky between these two cameras. The The ZV-E10 Mark II has a slightly more yellow cast to it, but that might be just from the kit lenses. But other than that, both cameras performed about the same here. A lot of people who do travel type content also want to get a cooking type content shot or food when they're out and about. So I tried my hand at it with the wide lens, the Viltrox 13mm f1.4, and these shots that you're seeing right now were in an uncontrolled lighting environment in a dining hall. I was only using the light source of the LEDs that were in the ceiling and a little bit of sunlight coming in from the outside, but this is exactly what you would see if you were a travel vlogger and you were trying to take shots of your food. I brought both cameras back with me to the studio to do some macro shooting to compare their looks and their sharpness, and the Fujifilm X-M5 and the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II performed about the same. One significant advantage of the X-M5 is its ability to record externally in Blackmagic RAW, as long as you have an external recorder that accepts B-RAW. This will allow greater dynamic range and post-production control. I tested the autofocus systems out on both cameras and I found that the X-M5 was a little bit slower to acquire focus on the target compared to the ZV-E10 Mark II, particularly in dimly lit environments. This difference in autofocus speed could be attributed to the varying autofocus algorithms and processing capabilities of each camera, with the ZV-E10 Mark II seemingly having an edge, especially with its low light autofocus performance. I did turn the autofocus tracking speed all the way up on the X-M5, which helped a little bit, but the Sony still outdid the X-M5. The ZV-E10 Mark II's autofocus system is not the only system that's better than the X-M5. We talked about how both cameras do not have IBIS or in-body stabilization, but they both do have digital stabilization with the crop. And when I put them side by side, I turned both of their electronic stabilizations to on. You can see that the Mark II did a little bit better when it came to stabilization, at least in my eyes. And when it comes to photography, the X-M5 will definitely be the winner, and that's because it has a mechanical shutter. I don't know why they took the mechanical shutter out of the ZV-E10 Mark II when it was in the ZV-E10 Mark I, but that's a huge drag if you're into photography. If you're kind of new and you're not sure why that's important, the X-M5's mechanical shutter avoids the rolling shutter distortion that plagues electronic shutters, especially when you're capturing fast-moving objects. It also allows for a higher flash sync speed, essential for photographers who utilize flash frequency. Also, a mechanical shutter eliminates the risk of electronic artifacts that can sometimes occur under certain artificial lighting conditions. Both the X-M5 and the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II take great photos, but they each have their own distinct flavor. Even though they both have the same size sensor with 26 megapixels, the pictures they produce have slightly different feel to them. The X-M5, being a Fujifilm camera, has a bit more of a classic film colors look to it, and there's a gentle sweetness to the image that's appealing to a lot of people. The Sony, on the other hand, produces pictures that are a bit more crisp and vibrant, which in my opinion is more of a modern style. Neither one is better or worse, it just depends on what kind of look you prefer. At the end of the day, both cameras deliver an excellent image quality. But don't forget that both do not have an electronic viewfinder, which makes it difficult to use them in brighter environments. I did find that I was having a tough time shooting photography with both of these cameras, especially when the sun was out high in the sky, because the reflection of not only the sun, but also all of the light that was bouncing off the walls around me made it difficult to see the display. But once I got back into a controlled lighting environment like this, I had no issues looking at the display. In my sharpness tests using the 23mm prime lens, both the X-M5 and the ZV-E10 Mark II performed great. They both rendered fine details with impressive clarity, especially when I scaled in. However, once I scaled in and I did a little bit of pixel peeping, I could see that the X-M5 did have a slight edge. This is likely due to its refined image processing, but it's so minor it's hard to distinguish unless you do scale in. Both cameras have decent onboard mics, but to enhance audio quality, I highly recommend investing in a third-party external microphone. Here's a vlog test shot of the audio so you can listen for yourself. Now I'm vlogging with the Fuji X-M5. I have all the stabilization turned to on and I'm using the kit lens. This kit lens is 15mm. Doing a vlog test with the ZV-E10 Mark II compared to the Fujifilm X-M5. I'm using the kit lens and I'm all the way back to 16mm. I do have stabilization on. The ZV-E10 Mark II uses those bigger NP-FZ100 batteries, whereas the Fuji X-M5 uses the smaller NP-W126S batteries, which definitely ran out a lot faster. The ZV-E10 Mark II gives me about 2 hours worth of video and photography kind of off and on, whereas the X-M5 gives me just over an hour. So when it comes to battery life, the ZV-E10 Mark II wins. While both cameras offer a lot, they also come with some drawbacks. The ZV-E10 Mark II's lack of mechanical shutter might be a deal breaker for some photographers, and the absence of being able to externally record in RAW for videographers who are seeking that maximum post-production color correction workflow. Also, the fact that it doesn't have a front dial on the grip can make quick setting adjustments less intuitive because you're more likely to have to jump into the menu system. On the other hand, the X-M5's compact size, while that's great for portability, it does necessitate a cage to be bought with it, just to have a more comfortable handle on it, especially when you're using larger lenses. The lack of an electronic viewfinder makes it a difficult buy for a lot of hybrid shooters out there who would like to have that EVF so that they can see what they're shooting, especially in bright environments. Also, there's mixed reviews on the film simulation dial up here on the top. A lot of people feel like that should have been a shutter speed dial like we get with other Fuji cameras. If we look at the bottom of both cameras, you can see the quarter mount thread on the X-M5 is right next to the battery door, which poses a huge problem, especially if you want to mount this camera up onto a tripod or a gimbal. It means that you'll have to completely remove it from the tripod or the gimbal in order to remove your battery and your SD card. Whereas with the ZV-E10 Mark II, the quarter mount thread is well offset from the battery doors, so I can change out my battery on the Mark II without having to remove it from anything. Another negative is both cameras have smaller camera bodies, which means they'll be prone to overheating. Neither camera overheated on me, but the X-M5 does have a 4K LP option, which means it'll crop into the sensor a little bit and it'll also reduce overheating. But your image quality won't be as good as shooting in the normal 4K. Another negative for the X-M5, when I switch back and forth between photography and video, it doesn't retain my settings. So if I'm going from spot to spot, I'll have to continually change my settings if I'm going between video and photography. Both cameras' rubber port flaps will break eventually because they're rubber and you can tell that they're flimsy, and I've had these break on other cameras. It's amazing to me that these manufacturers and companies still produce these types of flaps for these cameras. One more thing is the Q button on the X-M5. The placement of it right here at the top between these two dials makes it very difficult to press down. I wish that it was back here so I could easily access it. Ultimately, the choice between the Fuji X-M5 and the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II depends on your individual needs and your preferences. If you prefer autofocus speed, stabilization, and a better, wider array of lens options, then go with the ZV-E10 Mark II. However, if you value the classic aesthetic look and the fact that you can externally record in RAW or 6K video recording, along with all of the different film simulations that you get with the X-M5, then the X-M5 would be your bet. If you're looking for a good X100VI alternative because that camera is just continually back ordered, then pick up an X-M5, get a pancake lens, then you'll also have access to all of the X-Mount lenses that are on the market. I hope this comparison provided you valuable insights to help you make an informed decision. If you have any further questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll try to get to them. Also remember to check out the links in the description to access some of the footage, some of the LUTs that I created, and my ZV-E10 Mark II course. Thanks for watching this video, and please tell me which camera you like better and why. See you on the next video. One of the most asked questions that I receive is, which camera should I buy? I know that you want to make the right decision, and it's a big decision. You want to find the camera that best suits your needs and stays within your budget. Many of you know which camera might be for you, but you need some guidance pinpointing it and feeling confident in your decision. That's why I made this course. I want to put my camera experience and knowledge into a compact and easy to follow format. I jam-packed it with camera buying fundamentals that I guarantee you will carry through the rest of your camera journey. I based this entire course on all the things that I wish I had known or someone had told me when I first started out. From understanding different camera types and their features to matching them with your specific video and photography needs, this course covers it all. After finishing, I'm confident that you'll finally have clarity over every angle and aspect that you might consider when buying a camera. I'll guide you through my entire camera buying process, taking you 90% of the way there. That way you'll be well prepared to make your decision. This is essentially all the guidance that I would give my own brother if he asked me, "Hey Joe, which camera should I buy?" Now I'm going to share that insight with you.